So, Jill, welcome, another Jill, to Anti-Aging Uncensored. I am so excited to have you here today to talk about everything from early menopause, perimenopause, menopause, the whole scary M word.
It's a thing for sure. Thank you for having me, Jill. The big M word is something that every woman goes through and yet nobody talks about.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. It's one of those like off limits topics, which we'll talk about in a second. But before we dive in, can you tell everyone a little bit about your story? I thought it was so interesting and how Gennev came to be.
Absolutely. My background, I spent 20 years in the technology industry. So not necessarily did I ever think I would be starting a company focused on menopause. But, in my background, I love tech. I love technology. I love the value that it brings to people. My skill set's always been in marketing. So the majority of my career was at Microsoft. I was part of a smaller company. We took public. Microsoft acquired us. I moved to Seattle and worked at Microsoft for 15 years, really focusing on building brands. And it was absolutely an incredible experience. During the last kind of chapter of my time there at the company, I was the chief of staff to the chief marketing officer. And part of that function put me in the seat to run our women's senior networking team. We brought together leaders from across the company, and we had a network. We had a group where they could kind of just catch up every once in a while, have dinner. And through that, I really came to understand how they were transitioning in their lives, because they'd talk about, for a while, it was having kids. And lately, the conversations were shifting to how their health was changing. And on the side, my philanthropic interests have always been in women and girls development. That was where I spent my time, my passion. And the fun thing about how Gennev began was I was on a 3-month sabbatical, taking just a break from the corporate life. And I met my co-founder, Jackie Brandwin, who is an older woman. She is credited with building the Neutrogena brand into what we know it to be, and then sold it to Johnson & Johnson. And she had been through menopause. I was in my super early 40s at the time. And she was really the one who said, wow, this is a part of women's health. Every woman goes through it. It's so underserved. And one thing led to another, and we started Gennev, and that was about 4 years ago. So, it really happened through happenstance.
Well, you mentioned about, it is women's health, and yet so often women's health is focused around, not getting pregnant, being pregnant, having a baby, and then that's it. Like those are the things. And I just think it's interesting. And I've seen this a lot since starting Wicked Awesome You, that there's almost an aversion to the other part of it, which is maybe not the sexy part of it, but it could be.
It is. And that's the sad thing. Those steps in life that you just took us through around not getting pregnant, then wanting to get pregnant, then having a baby, that really all happens in kind of the first half of life. After you've done those things, you have a whole nother half left. And your body goes through some changes that will prepare you for that. And some of those changes, obviously present some pretty challenging, physical and emotional experiences for women. But we don't talk about it because I think it's been associated with aging, or, like you said, what's next? And women tend to feel invisible and not thought of during this phase of life. And so it's kind of all those things, like I'm getting older. Oh, I'm going through like menopause, which has some unsavory symptoms that, hot flashes and moodiness. And those are the common, but oh my God, there's so many others. And I think that it just has become this societal taboo about a woman's life. And I think that keeps the majority of women from getting the help that they could have and need.
Well, so let's kind of start at the beginning, because I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit unknowledgeable besides the two symptoms of hot flashes and what was the other one you mentioned that moodiness. Yeah.
Yep.
Besides that, I know very little about it. So let's talk about menopause. What is happening to our bodies and to our hormones?
So we often think of menopause as like puberty, the second time around, but the opposite thing happens in the body. So when we go through puberty, our body is flooded with hormones in preparation for, menstruating, having a baby, just that cycle of life. In menopause, those hormones leave the body and they are preparing us for, again, the second half around how our bodies will change. In some cases, some people have said that change of hormone levels will create more creativity in women chemically, but it just kind of sets us up for the second half. So that's what's happening biologically in the body. As we go through that transition, we think of perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause is like a 20-year journey, and it can last that long. So perimenopause is this moment where your hormones are starting to make those changes, but you're still menstruating and your period is changing. Menopause is actually one day in your life. It is the 12-month birthday or anniversary of no period consecutively for 12 months. So you've gone one full year, no period. Boom. You've hit menopause.
And that's literally one day.
It's one day.
That is so cool. I had no idea.
And then you go into postmenopause. And, we tend to just call the whole thing menopause. But I think that's why we don't realize that menopause is like one day of a woman's life. Do we celebrate that? We kind of don't, because I think a lot of women kind of pass by it and they don't even realize it. But when we started Gennev, the two most popular questions we got were, number one, am I normal? Because nobody talks about their menopause, so that everyone thinks that what they're going through is not normal. And then number two, okay, where am I at in the journey? And so when you think about just the symptoms, you asked a little bit about moodiness and hot flashes. Well, there's 34 different symptoms associated with those hormonal shifts in perimenopause and postmenopause, 34. And we don't tend to associate things like inability to sleep, joint pain, fatigue. Some women feel heart palpitations when they have a hot flash in particular, brain fog, tingling in your fingers, a change in body smell. There's so many different vaginal issues. There's a lot of things that are linked to these hormonal shifts in our bodies that we tend to treat in isolation versus looking at the whole woman. And so coming back to even why I'm so passionate about menopause and women taking control of their health during this time of life, you really have to look at the whole woman and what she's going through during this transition versus just things in isolation.
Really, really good point. What might be sort of an inkling that we are starting this journey? Is it one skipped period? Is it like what kinds of things might we look at and say, or do we have to go to a doctor to get that? That's the other question. Yeah.
Not necessarily. I think it's being very observant of what's going on in our bodies. We think of women when they come to Gennev.com can take our menopause assessment. It's free, It's a questionnaire, and it will help you understand where you're at in the journey. We have laid out 5 different phases: premenopause, perimenopause, early postmenopause, late postmenopause, and type 5, which is we don't quite know where you're at because you're on hormone therapy of some kind, whether it's birth control or an IUD or even hormone replacement therapy. So it masks symptoms. What you want to look for that starts to tell you you are starting to go through the transition is your period's going to change. You might have extremely heavy flow. It might become irregular, not as rhythmic as it used to be. You might have incredible bad cramping. Like you're going to notice a change with your period from what it was. That starts to signal to you that you are starting to go through some hormonal shifts in early perimenopause. Some women at the same time will start to experience some temperature changes, hot flashes, but typically the first sign is that your period is starting to change. And I think being mindful of it and how it feels, when it comes, you might not miss a period yet. I know I'm 47, I'm in perimenopause, and I still get my period. It is not always on time, and it's definitely different in terms of, just the pain or the inability to really forecast how heavy of the flow it's going to be. It's just like, it's more of a mystery than it's ever been. That might be a little oversharing, but it just gives you a sense of when to start knowing if things are starting to change.
So are there things that women should be looking for? You mentioned, the series of types of symptoms that you might get. Are there things that should be alarming or that we should seek additional help for? Or is this just sort of a natural cycle that we shouldn't be concerned about?
That's such a good question because I think women worry and think about that all the time. I know at the end of the day, I'll caveat anything I say here first with, your body best, trust your instincts. And if you think that you should see a doctor or reach out to a medical provider, do. You in terms of even your period changing or what, just trust your gut. And because your body best, and don't take being dismissed, or if you are dismissed by a physician, go find another one. Because we hear that from women all the time. Like, I know something's changing or going on, and my doctor told me to just suck it up or don't worry about it. I think where there are potential areas for concern, especially is on that postmenopausal side. If you've hit menopause, and then you all of a sudden have some erratic bleeding, that could signal something that you should go get checked out. Doing regular breast exams is incredibly important. And there's certain symptoms there that signal, like if your nipple inverts or certain things like that is signaling, that there might be complications with your breasts. So I think just like your radar has been up on your health throughout life to this point, or even in your children, you use instincts to go see a medical provider when you believe you need to. Trust those and continue to do so. But also know, like a lot of women will say, I thought I was having a heart attack because I'm having heart palpitations associated with my hot flashes. That's really common. They go in to get it checked out. But a lot of that is because we're just not aware of that as a symptom. And so again, is it better to get checked out even if you don't need it? Yes, it is. But all in all, listen to your body.
Yeah, that's great advice. So before we dive into, because I'm all about solutions, like what are the things that can help us? And I know that's what you guys do. I still have one more question around menopause, and that is the length of time. So in general, you're saying that it's a year from sort of the stop of your period for a year, correct?
Yes.
So that means during those 365 days, you haven't had a period.
Correct.
So a lot of women have hot flashes. A lot of women experience different, moodiness, all the different types of main symptoms. Are there things that we know should be dissipating towards the end? What is the length of time usually when people ask, how long am I going to have this thing?
There's no magical, silver like a ball that we can look into. However, here's some guidelines that we tend to look at. Perimenopause, leading up to that 1 year anniversary of no menstrual cycle, it can go anywhere from 2 to 10 years for women. They can go through that transition, and it could be significant.
Oh my God.
Some women march through it in 2 years and they're done. And typical symptoms associated with during that time, the majority of women, I should caveat this, the majority of women who come to Gennev, which Gennev is, just in quick summary, Gennev is a digital health website where women can come, and we offer 3 things: education, over-the-counter products for symptom relief, and then telemedicine, access to doctors and dietitians, whether you want to go medical route or lifestyle, natural. And so the majority of women who come to Gennev.com are women in that perimenopause phase, because you're going through the most change then. You're changing from what was to this new you, and you're in this transition. Your periods are crazy irregular. A lot of women experience hot flashes, mood changes, and trouble sleeping during this time of life. And again, it's all going back to hormone changes. So that's what makes lifestyle change so important. A lot of women also report weight gain at this point in time. So
Yuck.
yeah, and again, your metabolism's changing. And so there's also a process of accepting a new normal and then working within your means to thrive as much as possible or cope or manage it to the extent you can. And so when you think about that time frame, it can be up to 10 years. And then you hit that 1 year anniversary, that's menopause. And then you go into postmenopause. Those symptoms don't automatically stop. Sometimes it phases out. You might hit that 1 year mark and no longer be having hot flashes, and that's awesome. Good for you. Where we'll tend to see symptoms change in that postmenopause phase, now that your body is pretty much depleted of estrogen and progesterone, you're going to feel more dryness in your hair, in your skin, in your vagina. There's a lot more painful sex in that postmenopausal phase of life, but you might not be feeling as much of the hot flashes. Obviously, no menstrual challenges. Are period free, but the symptoms do not automatically stop on that one day and then start a new set of them. There is a little bit of a transition in between.
Wow, that's incredible that the transition can take that long. I'm in my 50s and I still have my period every month. But I know people that have gone through menopause in their 30s. Yeah. And, we're all different, I guess. So let's move on to solutions. Let's move on to what are the things out there, and you guys do this so well. How are you helping? What kind of processes are there? What kind of help? What kind of products are out there?
Well, first and foremost, we always find information's power. So get informed about your body and where you're at. So we always recommend women first take that menopause assessment to just understand. We assign you one of 5 types. So you can just kind of understand and associate the symptoms you're experiencing with the phase that you're in.
And this is on Gennev.com, correct?
It is.
Okay. We'll make sure that link is in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second of all, we know as human behavior, or as human beings, our behavior is to take a vitamin before you take an aspirin, before you see a doctor when something's wrong, or when you're not feeling great. So we have a line of over-the-counter products that women can use based upon when they need it. Typically, these products are associated with symptom relief, whether that be vaginal changes, around dryness or irritation, or painful sex, or whether that be for addressing fatigue and the kinds of nutrients that we don't absorb in our bodies as much as we age. If I think about the products, we have both supplements and hygiene products. To just summarize, our top selling product is our Vitality multivitamin supplement. We worked with a physician who's been kind of prescribing supplements and vitamins to women in menopause for about 20 years to formulate a daily supplement. It's got 5 capsules in the pill pack that you take every day, and it shrinks essentially 12 bottles down to 5 pills every day. And it addresses kind of the baseline thing that every woman talks to us about. I feel fatigued. I'm not sleeping very well. My skin and hair are kind of drying up. I've got inflammation. I'm achy. My moods are challenged. I'm feeling moody and I don't feel in control of my moods. And so when you think about the nutrients that we need in our bodies to manage some of that, we've put that into Vitality as a supplement for women to take, just so you're getting the nourishment that you might not have been getting in your 30s or earlier in your life. I mean, that's kind of the baseline. But knowing that a lot of us as human beings turn to a product first for symptom relief before you're going to go see a doctor or an expert, that's kind of how we've designed the solutions that we offer to women. And then again, if you do want to talk to a doctor or a dietitian to change your, need help with changing lifestyle behavior to better manage the symptoms, you certainly can access them on our site as well.
To me, it sounds like you are addressing almost like the pregnancy vitamins, right? So we, when we're pregnant, we take a different multivitamin that has different, more folic acid or folate or whatever it was. I can't remember that far back. But all the different things that we need, it changes. So truly, when we're at different stages of our life, we really do need different things for our bodies. And that multivitamin we were taking at 40, 45 might not be the right mixture to help with the symptoms that we're dealing with then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, your ability, and I think this is the biggest learning for me, because I've always been a little bit of a vitamin and supplement taker myself, but I've obviously changed as I'm in my 40s. But the biggest learning for me was that we don't absorb nutrients like we used to. And so we become deficient, specifically in B vitamins that really contribute to the energy that we want. And, vitamin A, vitamin E, as well as biotin, as well as we do have folate. We have curcumin for the inflammation. And so it really is focusing on this time of life and what we need. So I think your correlation to prenatal vitamins is a really good one, because it's the same thing happening here in perimenopause and postmenopause.
Let's talk about what there is to be celebrated. What do you see as how women can tell a different story to themselves, rather than thinking of this as this dire, the beginning of the end? I don't know if anyone thinks that, but you know what I mean? That sort of moment of like, oh no, it's starting.
Yeah. And I think that, oh no, it's starting, or comes out of, again, centuries of women just feeling invisible and not understood, and also getting somewhat dismissed from their doctor. We get a lot of women that say, I just don't feel heard. And part of that is doctors have no education on menopause. Gynecologists have about a quarter of it. So it's a small chunk of their formal education, but it's just never been a focus. So, and doctors need to know a lot about a lot. So that's not a jab against them. But I think as women, number one, we more than ever need to take control of our health during this time of life. And there are solutions to feeling better than a lot of women feel, but it's getting informed as to what's going on and then taking action. And that's, at the end of the day, our mission is to empower women to take control of their health in menopause, because it's in your hands. And then if you're ready to do it, we're right there as a partner to help you along the way. The good things about, obviously there is this moment of finally, I don't have a period anymore. So, hey, that's freedom. But when we talk to women who have gone through the transition full on, they, there's a new body that you're living in. And I think each one of us will feel that differently once we get there, but there is a freedom without menstruating, believe it or not, but there certainly is. But I think at the end of the day, there's also women, we have a new confidence about us. And part of that comes with age and wisdom in life. But I think that what we see is women really just being happy with what they're doing. They're finding more joy. They've got more independence in life. Kids are older. Obviously, you're maybe taking care of elderly parents, but there is more freedom. And so part of it is just associated with acceptance, caring less about the things you used to care about that are now less meaningful in life, and it's freedom. And we want to help you feel as good physically as possible, so that you can experience those things that are really a part of this time of life.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when I was younger, the things that used to almost send me into a tailspin. Bad haircut, breakout. They ran out of my favorite shoes, or they ran out of my size, or things that would absolutely send me spinning. I know that sounded so materialistic, but the things that would be so dramatic, or I missed a party on Saturday night.
It's true. It's FOMO. You don't want to miss out, or be left out. It's true.
And now I feel that there's just something that age, and there's nothing else you can do about it. It is truly age that allows you to become more centered and comfortable in your own skin. And so to let go of all that is a huge relief. So I can easily see what you're saying, that there's, multiple levels to that as we get older.
Yeah. 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 I think it is. It's just part of that wisdom that comes with it.
Are there any additional changes post menopause that you think women should be making?
Yes. How we take care of ourselves during this phase of life will determine our long-term health, specifically around chronic health, around heart disease, bone health or osteoporosis, dementia and Alzheimer's, those three in particular. And so when there's obviously obvious links to the power of hormone therapy. If you are a candidate to be able to take that, explore it, because it can be very helpful in preventing or minimizing the impacts of those long-term chronic issues that so many women suffer from. That's number one. Number two is diet and nutrition. Some of our medical advisory board members, we have gone out to them. One of them studies the correlation between menopause and Alzheimer's and dementia. And she is also, in addition to being a neuroscientist, also a neuronutritionist, and really feels that a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia could be avoided or minimized through diet, especially during this hormonal transition. So understanding, how do I not only feel better now from the symptoms I'm suffering from, but how can I also double down on my health for the future through lifestyle change more than anything, and or hormone therapy? That's also part of why I think it's so important for women to get educated and really take a better hold of managing their health and finding help during this phase of life.
I love it. This has been so good. It is not only the perfect introduction to menopause on our podcast, right? But you really covered so much that is important, and so many questions that women have that they just don't ask. And I'm sure I missed 100 questions, and I'll re-listen to this and think, I got to bring you back. But I do think that this is such an important topic, and I just want to normalize it as much as possible for women. I'm not saying that we have to have it be bar talk, but when we do go back to bars, but I do think that for women to be able to even talk to each other about it, like I do find that it is the one topic that none of my friends seem to talk about with each other. And I don't know if it's embarrassment or I'm not sure what it is, but I think that talking about it more is really important. So I love what you're doing. I have one final question for you, which is a bit off topic, but it might fit in nicely. What is the one thing you tell yourself when it comes to your health? Like your younger self, I should say. What is the one thing you would tell your younger self when it comes to your health?
That is a great question. I'd more than likely say to myself that don't be a victim. You have control and resources, and go out, search it out, ask people. Don't suffer in silence. And and I think so many women do that. And I know I have growing up too. So don't suffer in silence. Ask. Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great. So where can listeners find you?
We are at Gennev.com. That's GENNEV.com. So come find us online. You can connect with us via our chat on the site directly. You can email me at jill@gennev.com. I take a ton of email all the time. We hear from women all over the globe. We've got a global audience. So reach out. And if you've got questions that are simple or that are difficult, or you're struggling, please reach out. We hear from women at all stages dealing with all sorts of things. So don't hesitate.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. I can't tell you how helpful this has been.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for starting the conversation, Jill, on this, because it's a big deal. So we really appreciate being here with you.
Hopefully your words will help a lot of people. Thank you.